And I want to talk about this difference today. There's this nuance in the state of our mind around all these phenomena, these emotions, and these thoughts, and all these things that happen in our lives. There's this subtlety in your mind that is the flexion point that we need to be looking for if we want to alleviate our suffering. There's this subtlety, and I want to. There's a similar difference between the judging mind and the discerning mind, and I want to talk about that today. I want to talk about the judging mind versus the discerning mind to hopefully explain things in a way that you can appreciate the subtlety of your mind, what it is that causes the suffering and what it is that allows you freedom from your suffering. So I was inspired to talk about this because of an article I read by an Italian Vipassana teacher by the name of Corrado Pensa. So I went to the dictionary first to find some definitions because he wrote this article. It's actually available on online. I can send it to you if you find it interesting. He wanted to explain this nuance that I'm going to share by comparing the judging mind and the discerning mind. So I looked up the definitions of each, and it's kind of interesting what I found. So the first verb, to judge, there's two separate ways of defining it. Number one, to form an opinion about something or someone after careful thought. For example, you should not judge people by their appearance. You should not form an opinion about someone by their appearance. Or number two, to regard someone as either good or bad. Who are you to judge me, was their example. To regard someone as either good or bad. So that kind of fits, right? That sounds familiar. We judge, we form an opinion after careful thinking. Or we just determine things are good and bad. To discern is not a word that we're as used to using. It doesn't show up as frequently in conversation in the world. To see, hear, or notice something with difficulty or effort. For example, we could just discern, distinguish, or make out the ship through the fog. So to notice something with effort, like a ship in the fog, you have to really kind of stare at it. Number two, to come to know, recognize, or understand something. To come to know, recognize, or understand something. For example, the reasons behind this sudden change are difficult to discern. So again, there's this implication of some kind of effort that's required, whereas to judge is a kind of an easier one. You're regarding something as good or bad. You're thinking about it and you're forming an opinion. So this is really important when you're coming to the Buddhist understanding of the judging mind versus the discerning mind. And the difference, really, the heart of it, the core of it, is that the judging mind is characterized by a compulsiveness. Right? There's this sort of instinctual, habitual movement behind the judging mind. And the discerning mind is characterized by humility, receptivity. It's T.S. Eliot. He wrote this very dharmic poem, The Four Quartets. He writes, "The only wisdom we can hope to acquire is the wisdom of humility. Humility is endless. Humility is at the core of wisdom." So this discerning mind, this humility in looking, is the highest form of intelligence. the energy behind the two. So the discerning mind has this energy of clarity. It's like an empty mind. It's a clear mind. It's cutting through our delusions. And the judging mind is clogged with opinions. The judging mind is characterized by an attachment to our opinions. We formed an opinion after some careful thought, and then we become attached to it. The textural difference is the judging mind is hard and solid, rigid. It's the mind that already knows. Whereas the discerning mind is soft, light, flowing, like that. And if we think about mindfulness is identified, is defined as this non-judgmental attention. That's mindfulness. We're applying our attention in a non-judgmental manner. When we're meditating and the thoughts are coming in and we're like, oh my God, what am I thinking about that for? Seeing that, being like, oh, look, there came a thought. There came my aversion to the thought. Just observing it, not judging it, not smacking ourselves, trying not to. So the judging mind is the opposite of mindfulness, really. So therefore, it's a very important area for our practice. And if there's one thing the Buddha taught that we should practice for, is to end suffering. And this judging mind is a great form of suffering that we might not be familiar with. The judging mind is a manifestation of the 3 poisons that I refer to regularly: craving, aversion, and delusion. The 3 intoxicants, they're sometimes referred to the 3 unwholesome states: greed, hatred, and delusion. And they're called the 3 poisons because they cause suffering. They poison us. They hurt us. And these judgments that we engage in so habitually are actually acts of mental attachment. And therefore, they are the seeds for our suffering. So this judging mind is the equivalent to suffering. And it takes time to see this, because the addiction to our judgments, to our opinions, is strong. Think of how good it feels when you're having an argument with somebody, whether it's big or small. Think how good it feels when they finally say, you know what, you're right. You're like, finally you see what I'm talking about. Because our attachment to our view is so strong that it's almost painful. It's a powerful form of suffering. It's very subtle. And we've been cultivating this addiction our whole lives. And our work, we have to really trust in the practice of mindfulness. We really we have to have a lot of perseverance to unwind the addiction to the judging mind. So the discerning mind and the judging mind, the thing that's really hard about the practice of seeing this is that they look almost exactly the same from the outside. So I'll give you an example. So maybe you think that this one person is like fake and false, not a truthful person. And so you have to ask yourself, am I discerning? Am I judging? Is this good? Is this bad? What's the difference between these two qualities of mind? And the same statement can be applied, but you can be using a different mind to apply it. So the way that you can sense this is the judging mind is accompanied by aversion. Like, this person is false, this person's not truthful. Is your mind accompanied by aversion? The discerning mind is accompanied by equanimity. Yes, this person is false, this person is not truthful. These two minds can say the same thing, but the discerning mind comes from a peaceful place. And the judging mind comes from a reactive place. The judging mind is very fixed, and the discerning mind is very flexible. So in our example of this person, the discerning mind, it sees the falseness, but it also sees beyond the falseness. It sees the confusion, the suffering that's behind the falseness. Whereas this rigid, fixed view, the judging mind, you just keep hammering away at how false that person is, like full stop. And there's no further development in your mind. There's sort of a certain sterility in the judging mind, and there's a certain creativity in the discerning mind. The judging mind loves comparing. Yes. The comparing mind is one of the last things to go. Monks are on the hill about to reach enlightenment, and the last thing they have to let go of is their comparing mind. They're looking at the monk next to them and saying, oh, he's more enlightened than I am. The comparing mind is a real rat trap. And some of us specialize in comparing our present situation with our past situation. Some people are specializing in comparing what could have been, what should have been. Some people are good at comparing with material things that other people have. I want to mention that the judging mind can be connected with a positive attitude. This is very important, especially for someone like myself. Try to be so positive. Really important. The judging mind that's positive is still a rigid mind. And aversion is like hiding right around the corner. Because this positive judgment doesn't want to be contradicted, even a little. Yeah, I can do that. Not a problem. If that view is fixed and the mind doesn't have the creativity to appreciate the possibility of it not being able to happen, that I can't do it, the options are more limited. It's kind of, for me, it's a little bit of a tricky one, again, because I do tend to focus so much on the positive, and I do believe it's very wholesome, and yet there's a nuance there. It's wonderful to focus on the positive, but you have to be very careful not to become attached to the positive and averse to the negative, because it's a position of frailty. It's not solid. It's not lasting. So Buddha talks about wise attention and unwise attention. And I'll put this in perspective. For example, say you have a special dislike for a particular person, and suddenly they appear. Suddenly your attention becomes very sharp. You see all the bad things. It's corroborating your story, your inner story. This is unwise attention. It's strong, it's sharp, and it's unwise. This causes suffering in you. This is unwise attention causing suffering in you, having this sharp and strong attention on a very kind of monochromatic story about this person. If you're able to access the discerning mind with wise attention, you can see the same person equally disliked by you, not a problem. And you can see the suffering that caused the unpleasant things in them. That's the nuance. Your mind is more spacious, more open. And when you practice this way, you can almost feel the suffering of your unwise attention. It's maybe, I'm not sure if this fits at this point, but I often think of this idea of when we have aversion, especially say for a person, but it could be situations. When we have aversion and we want them to just go away, we hate, we have anger, whatever it is, it's like drinking poison and hoping that'll make them go away. It's living in our body. That energy is inside of us. And that's where the suffering comes. So, I'm noticing the time. I'll just kind of close by saying that, how do we work with this judging mind? It's such a wonderful area for practice. It's such a powerful place to put our attention and to investigate. And Buddha said, you don't need to say things, you don't need to act differently. You need to have direct experience. You need to see it in your mind, and you need to understand it in your mind over and over and over. Then naturally, your words, your actions, they naturally follow. But step one is understanding it in yourself, in your own mind, in all of our minds. This isn't specialized to just you. It's the human condition. So with this affectionate, compassionate witnessing to what's happening inside of us, we can develop that sort of steadiness of mind. It's important to notice the separation that is caused inside of you with this judging mind. It's very important to put your attention there and to notice it. I want to end this by mentioning at the end of Corrado Pensa's article, he said something so funny. He said, where is it? Warm. Okay, yes, we're trying to make a transition from this egocentric mind to a more dharmic mind, I guess. And he says we're we're searching for a warm and impersonal way of looking at things. Warm and impersonal. Usually we think like cold and impersonal. But he's saying if you can sense into the quality of the judging mind and you can feel the separateness, it's a coldness, it's a loneliness. So the opposite that we're searching for is this connectedness, this warmth, and it's accompanied by an impersonal movement, because we're saying this is not specific to me or to you. It's a universal, like the suffering involved here is a universal one. So we're trying to take a step back, kind of be a little bit dispassionate, to be a little bit more knowing, to have that equanimity. So he says it's a warm and impersonal state of mind that we're looking for. But we're looking for a subtlety in our thought process. The judging mind being this, it's internal, it's like this attachment and this holding on to our beliefs, our opinions. Not that we can't have our beliefs and our opinions, but we hold them lightly and spaciously so as to just alleviate our suffering.